Tales from Reb Nachman, adapted and illustrated by David Sears. The Copson Kasha. Once upon a time, there was a Jew who was an advisor to the Turkish Sultan. The Jew's name was Yehuda. The Sultan liked him better than all the other officers and ministers. Every day, Yehuda was summoned to the royal palace to visit with the Sultan. They would sit together on thrones of carved ivory under a silk canopy, surrounded by many servants. But the other ministers became jealous and plotted to destroy Yehuda. One of the ministers was Copson Pasha. Copson Pasha was lean and wiry, with eyes of a hawk, the beard of a goat, and the heart of a snake. This Pasha hated the Jewish advisor, Yehuda, even more than everyone else did. To Yehuda's face, Copson Pasha acted as if he were his friend, but night after night he would rack his brains to find some way to get rid of him. One day, when he was by himself, the Copson Pasha took Yehuda aside and said to him, "Yehuda, I was with the Sultan, and he told me how much he respects you. However, it's difficult for the Sultan to speak with you because he can't stand your bad breath, Yehuda. Since the Sultan enjoys your company, he suffers greatly from this. Take my advice, Yehuda. The next time you speak to the Sultan, hold a perfumed handkerchief in front of your mouth. Yes, Yehuda, then the Sultan won't notice your bad breath, and you won't offend him." Yehuda was very trusting. He believed the Pasha's words and took his advice. Then the Copson Pasha went to the Sultan, and he said, "Your Majesty, your Majesty, Yehuda complained to me about your bad breath. That's why he decided to cover his face with a perfumed handkerchief whenever he comes before you." The Pasha lied, of course. "See for yourself, your Majesty. When the Jew comes tomorrow, he will cover his face." At this, the Sultan turned red with anger. "Oh, if what you say is true, tomorrow will be the last day he has to put up with the smell of my breath." Well, sure enough, the next morning, Yehuda came before the king, the Sultan, and he had a handkerchief covering his mouth. "Aha," the Sultan said. Seeing this, he decided that the Copson Pasha had told the truth. The Sultan then told Yehuda to wait outside. Then he called for the royal scribe. "Royal scribe, yes, your Majesty. I want you to write a letter. The person who delivers this note is to be thrown immediately into the royal fiery furnace." The Sultan signed and sealed the note and then called Yehuda back. "Yehuda?" "Yes, your Majesty." "Do me a favor. Bring this letter in person to the man whose address is written on the envelope." Yehuda took the note and promised the Sultan he would do so. Not knowing what was written inside, he returned home, happy to perform his royal errand. Now, Yehuda was especially devoted to the mitzvah of bris milah. Whenever he was invited to be the mohel, he would always accept, because this mitzvah was so important to him. Now, as he was walking with the king's letter, a Jewish villager greeted him. "Oh, Yehuda, Yehuda, please honor us by being the mohel at my son's bris. He's our firstborn." Yehuda didn't want to pass up this mitzvah for anything in the world. but he had to deliver the Sultan's letter. Yehuda was pacing in front of his house, wondering what to do, when along came his good friend, Copson Pasha. "You look worried today," the Pasha said. "Oh, I guess it shows," Yehuda said sadly as he nodded his head. "The Sultan asked me to run an errand for him, but there's a special mitzvah I must do instead. I would be grateful to you forever if you could deliver this letter for me." Oh, the Pasha was overjoyed. "Certainly, I'll deliver the letter." Now he could tell the Sultan that the Jew had disobeyed his direct command. He took the letter and hurried off while Yehuda did the bris in shul. Oh, the Pasha was excited. He imagined himself sitting on the ivory throne next to the Sultan. This made him so happy that the trip across the city hardly seemed to take any time at all. However, to the Copson Pasha's great surprise, when he got to the address, they read the letter. In the letter it said, "Ho ho, whoever delivers his letter must be thrown into the fiery furnace." And when they read it, the royal executioner got his guards, and they took the Pasha and they threw him in to the fiery furnace. Ah! In this way, the Pasha brought upon himself the very fate he had intended for Yehuda the Jew. Yehuda, on the other hand, knew nothing about this. Nothing at all. In the morning, he returned to the palace. And there he found the Sultan, sipping his morning tea. When the Sultan saw Yehuda, he stammered, What? He was so shocked, he even spilled an entire hot cup of tea on his robes, and he didn't even notice. "Didn't you deliver the letter that I put in your hand yesterday?" he asked Yehuda. "Forgive me, your majesty," answered Yehuda. "I meant no disrespect, but I gave the letter to Copson Pasha to deliver. I was suddenly called upon to attend a bris milah, an honor which I have never ever refused." The Sultan realized that Copson Pasha had surely been killed. Well, was this Jew clever enough to have arranged it? The Sultan had to get to the bottom of this. "Tell me, Yehuda, why do you hold that perfumed handkerchief over your mouth?" "Copson Pasha advised me to do this," the Jew said simply. "He told me that the smell of my breath upset you." But the Sultan said, "Copson Pasha told me that you were upset by my bad breath." Suddenly everything became clear. When the Sultan realized what Copson Pasha had tried to do, he revealed what he had written in the letter. "Now I know that Hashem is the ruler of all the earth," the Sultan said. "He saved his loyal servant from harm and paid Copson Pasha for his evil. What the Pasha plotted to do to you, Yehuda, was done to him, measure for measure." Yehuda was now even more respected by the Sultan than before. Yes, Yehuda returned to favor with the Sultan and continued to sit by his side every day, giving the king advice. But he never forgot that he owed his life to the love he had shown for the mitzvah of bris milah. Our sages say in Pirkei Avot, "Set aside your will because of Hashem's will, and he will set aside the will of others because of your will." Not only did setting aside his own will to do a mitzvah save Yehuda's life, but it made it his life worth saving. The end.